one, and we're live. Go ahead,
All
Mr.
right,
Durbin.
everyone. Thanks for joining Mindset Mentors. We have one of our premier Mindset Mentors on the line here, Matthew Durbin. He's somebody that personally helped me get into the industry, and I'm sure same for Pete here. So
Yeah, absolutely.
thanks for joining us, Matt.
You got it. Happy to be here, boys.
And I'll be seeing you in person later, so that's really exciting. Doesn't
That's
happen
good,
a lot
too.
with our guests in about
That's good,
4 hours. Yeah. So I guess to kick it off, Matt, maybe kind of we can just run through your beginnings in the industry and a little bit of your story to begin with.
Yeah. How far back do you want to go? You want to go from the beginning?
As far back as you want to go.
What's your first memory? Yeah.
My first man. I'm running on some Black Rifle coffee right now. My son was up all night.
Oh, that's
ill. So
well, there you go.
I'm trying to catch up right now. But so yeah, I mean, I think as far as the, kind of the history of how I got here, it's a little bit of a long one, but it's a little, kind of takes a number of different turns. So I think for anybody that's just starting out in the industry or is planning to start out or is maybe struggling right now, like I started over in like 3 different markets in 3 different ways, almost started over 4 different times. I mean, it's not ideal, but you learn a lot throughout that process. So, I think after college, I made my way to DC. I was in the, corporate world, right? Got the degree in accounting and was working for a large construction company down there and was a financial analyst. And I mean, I don't know if you've ever, lived in DC or been there during rush hour traffic, but 2 hours to get home on a Friday night after a long week of, looking at spreadsheets is not ideal. It's not a lot of fun whenever you're 20.
Yeah, I was going to say, how old are you at this point in your life? So it's
20,
right after college.
I would have been 22, probably 23, 24.
Yeah, that's a hard transition from so you played college football at Gannon, finished that, moved to DC. And that, I think that's hit a lot of people. That's snapping, just like, well, I'm an adult now, 2-hour commutes on a Friday night.
Yeah, honestly, I went back to, I'm from Altoona originally. I went, when I graduated from college, I went there. I was going to be a CPA. And my first job in Altoona, I was performing an audit of my old school district. So I knew everybody there, and I was counting lunch tickets the one day, like literally auditing the lunch tickets. And the CPA who I was working with, he's a really cool guy. I'm still friends with him today, but he leaned back and he was like, "Well, Matt, this is going to be your audit someday." And I was like, "Man, I got to get out of here. This is not going to be." Like, I literally was just looking across the table at my future in 40 years, still coming back to that school district audit, counting lunch tickets. And I was just like, yeah, man, there's got to be more.
You haven't told me that.
Like, yeah, it's great, stable. But I think, that small town, Altoona, that's small town thinking. That's what I was kind of raised on. You get a degree, I mean, my father didn't go to college. I actually think he went for a semester and dropped out. I mean, he went into the Marines. He worked at Conroe. Worked on the railroad for 35 years. He's just a hard nose. You get a job, you get, you try to earn a pension, you stay there, you work your way up the corporate ladder your whole life, and then, and that's just what you do. I mean, so like when so I started looking, I mean, I love Altoona. I love all my friends. I still have a great group back there, but it was just like, I just couldn't envision myself staying in the small town for the remainder. I just didn't see I wanted more, and I just didn't see. I felt like you're almost capped there on what you can do.
Right.
Yeah. Other than just owning your own business, you were a little bit capped. And that's when I started looking at different areas. Looked at Pittsburgh, I looked at DC, I looked at Philly, and I ended up getting a good opportunity in DC.
Okay. Yeah, and I completely agree with you too. I mean, I'm from Pittsburgh, still living in the Pittsburgh area, and even then, you know where everything is. You see the same stuff. I don't need a GPS to get around the city, and there's a benefit to that, but it's also something where, obviously Pittsburgh's bigger than Altoona, but it's the feeling of, just wanting to expose yourself to some more stuff. Not necessarily that it was bad where you were, but you wanted to get out and see what else you could find, and
yeah. I just wanted more than what I felt like my opportunity was there.
Right.
And you knew you could always go back too. That's kind of,
yeah, you can always go back. Yep.
Yeah. And then I feel similarly with Erie, where I'm from, is like, I love it there. It's great to go back, have family there, but I got forced into, leaving and going abroad, but I'm glad it happened. And now I'm of the mindset of, well, it's a plane ride away and I can always move back if I wanted to. So I hear you on that. So now you're in DC, you're sitting in the crazy traffic and you're thinking there's gotta be something else, right?
Yeah. I mean, I used to call my parents. I would talk to my dad usually on the way home, because it was literally like you'd have some days it'd be an hour. I see. I did it backwards. I mean, I think if I would have lived somewhere differently, maybe, and had an easier commute, maybe things are different. Maybe I'm still in DC today, but I lived in Northern Virginia and I worked in Bethesda every day. So I had a 20-mile beltway trip. So if there was an accident, you were sitting in 5 lanes for 2 hours, just going through your phone, figuring out who you could call next to talk.
I have anxiety just thinking.
You had so much time to burn. And I just remember, like, the one Friday, I was just, the traffic was terrible. I was supposed to go out with some friends that night. It took me and I was just like, I'm literally spending 3 hours of every day of my life sitting in this car on this, but like, it was just like, I couldn't handle it anymore.
Yeah.
And I started looking at, I had friends in the mortgage industry. That was when the mortgage market was booming. That was 2004-ish, 2004, 2005. I mean, the housing market was going crazy. And I knew that, the other thing too, I got a raise. I got 2 promotions within my first year and a half there. So it's not like I wasn't doing well. I was doing well there. My second raise equated to like $62 a paycheck, like additional take home. I'm like, I'm gonna just chip away at $62 pay increases for the rest of my life.
Half a tank of gas for your commute.
I need to be in something that I can, like, I knew I would put the work in if I had a goal or I had a drive to go towards it, but this was just sucking the life out of me.
Right. And that's something that, well, that feeling of having your options predetermined for you. Here's $62. It's like, well, why not 60? Why not 75? It's just like $62 because, I mean, you're the CPA. You tell me, because they fit the corporation. Every employee is worth this much. Break it down into like, Matt Durbin gets $62. And you're like, great. I feel really in control of my future.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yeah. So I ended up making a move and going to the mortgage industry. And it allowed a little bit more freedom for me, because I didn't have set hours. I could, I was 100% commission, but, luckily the owner of the company that I moved to, he saw that I was a little, like most of the people that were in that mortgage office were not college educated. They were, they're either just straight sales guys that have been in sales their whole life, or they didn't really have any other option, and you could get a mortgage license when you're 18 then. So I know I had a couple kids, Danny and Carlos. Carlos was from Guatemala, 19 years old, just crushing it in the mortgage industry. Like they were just straight hustlers. And so so my boss ended up just kind of taking me under his wing then. He's like, well, I'm going to keep a couple of deals every month for myself. The bigger ones, I'm going to let you run with it. I'll just give you a cut of those. You handle it, process it. It's just straight on the job training.
Yeah.
And after about a year, I was like, there's nothing that anybody's doing that is all that impressive. Like I felt like I could start one of those. Like I could start a mortgage office. And I started talking to my friend DJ, who most of us know, and he had since moved to Fort Lauderdale. He was in the mortgage industry as well. He was on the account executive side. I was like, man, we should start a mortgage broker business. Like this.
How old are you guys at this point?
25.
Okay.
And yeah, it would have been like June of 2005, I believe. Or actually, no, June of 2005, 2006. I ended up moving down there in 2006, moved to Fort Lauderdale. So I was basically like going through like this, it just was like there was a ton of people that were in the mortgage industry making a ton of money that were not really business people, that weren't running great businesses. It was just they were just making a lot of money because of the way that the market was.
Yeah.
And within a year, I'm like, I could start one of these. And so I told him, I'm like, hey, we should start a mortgage business. And he's like, well, you moved to Fort Lauderdale and I'll start a mortgage broker business with you. And so, figuring that was never going to happen. So, it was probably, it was probably just like me just talking. And around that time, my dad had been sick. My dad had been, he had cancer for 8 years, multiple stem cell transplants and stuff like that. And
right.
I was like, and it was, it was getting down towards the end. And I was just like, listen, man, like he was already a little bit unhappy when I left this great position, where I could have excelled. And I went into a mortgage sales job that's 100% commission, because it takes, it took away the security,
the stability
right?
of, yeah.
Yeah, these are like Depression era folks who have lived through some hard times, where it's like you never take away the security of a constant paycheck that guarantees your bills are going to be paid. And I just didn't have that way of thinking for one reason or another. I don't know why, but I just couldn't think that way. And I'm like, I'm thinking about moving to Fort Lauderdale and starting a mortgage broker business.
So you're talking to your dad, telling him this?
Talking to my dad, yeah, literally like on his deathbed. And he was like, I've been telling you to live one way your whole life, but I think I was wrong all this time. Wow. Like, being sick and going through what he's going through, I think you go back and you just start thinking back on your life, like, should I have taken more risks? Should I have done this? Should I have done that? And he's like, go for it. Like, take a risk, take a shot. You've never really failed at anything you've done. Like you're always successful. You figure out a way, go for it. He's like, I'm not going to tell you to go the easy route, because, I don't know that I've been telling you the right way to look at things your whole life. So for me, that was the blessing that I needed to just go.
Yeah.
Then if you fail, it's like, it's okay, because I had his blessing.
That's pretty incredible. As you were saying that, I got full body goosebumps.
Yeah, me too.
It's interesting because I feel like I had, so like not a very similar situation, but basically my dad was like, I was at a very key, like, decision point, after college, and my dad's like, hey, just take a leap of faith, believe in yourself. And I was like, shit, okay, let's go. Let's take a bet on myself. And, you're in control of that. and it's pretty awesome to hear that. And that was kind of like the green light for you to just go.
That's exactly it, man. Like if you read that the McConaughey book,
Green Lights. Yeah,
that was it, right? And for real though, it was
Catching
because
green lights.
I was so used to, and I think we all are, especially like depending where you're from and what your parents did. You know, if they worked at 9 to 5 their whole life, you're used to them telling you, no, take the safe route. No, take the security route of a paycheck. No, don't take that risk. What if you like, I still have these conversations with my mother sometimes. Like, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. Well, what if it doesn't work out?
Yeah.
I'm like, well, what if it does?
Yeah. What if it does?
Like,
what if I live with regret for the next 80 years?
What if I end up being very successful? Like, and I think, I think sometimes it causes, when you've got a great adversity like that, or you've got something where you start really getting introspective and you start looking at, life. It's like, well, why wouldn't I go take a shot? Because ultimately you're just going to end up looking back on it and thinking, oh man, I should have done this, or I should have done that, or so I'd rather go and fail. And having the blessing of somebody who I just had, that was the person who I respected most. It's like,
absolutely,
okay, I can fly and do this. And even if I fail, so what?
Yeah.
I can always go back to accounting. Right.
Well, and Matt, that's what you made me think of too, kind of connecting the dots, where it's something that, I mean, JP's young, but he's doing swim lessons now, and maybe that's one of the first athletic, maybe if whatever he's interested in, it doesn't matter. But like whenever there's a little kid, and it doesn't matter how old you are, even when you're a 30-year-old man, you talk to your dad and your mom, and it's the feeling of like, I'll still love you even if you fail, go do the thing. You know what I mean? Like, and it's like, I trust you. You've never really screwed anything up. You work really hard. I respect you as a human, like whatever you needed to feel that, like the push, be like, oh, okay. And it's hard because it comes at the, I don't know that's not the right, I was going to say the expense of, but it comes at the cost was your dad feeling that difficulty of like, I didn't do it, you should go do it.
Yeah, and I think too, in a way, I think he was looking at it too, like, what I'm telling my son, am I holding him back?
Yeah.
From something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? From a better life and a greater opportunity.
Yeah, that's a good one to think about too.
Yep. That's and I'm sure we've all felt this too at some point. You had the security, and then, at least for me personally, getting into the industry, I was like, okay, I'm going to take a bet on myself. And anyone that maybe like raised an eyebrow of like, well, I mean, you got a pretty good, well-paying job. And I would just be like, yeah, but you know what? I'm taking a bet on myself. I can do it. So thank you for your opinion. But,
everyone.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. Everyone who, all three of us, everyone pretty much in the real estate space didn't start into that right after college. I don't have a degree in real estate. Right. I have a degree I don't use in health administration. And so my point being, what security did you actually leave? Right. is my question. So, and that's into the next, phase of your journey here. Like, that's, I think, something a lot of people battle with. It's like, oh, I'm leaving the security of a 9 to 5. It was like, enter COVID-19.
Yeah.
What security? How much savings do you need to have to feel secure? I think the security comes from what you said a couple minutes ago, Matt, is I have the skills, I have the background, I have the ability to work hard. That's security, in my opinion. It's not how much money makes you feel secure. What if your assets get frozen? Do you feel secure now? It can always be taken from you. What cannot be taken is the ability to work hard and push forward. So,
right. I mean, and I think, and that's one of the things that I've learned, and I've learned the hard way. Right. Like I almost feel now like, yeah, are there risks that I could be taking, or I should take, or, that I'm not, because I'm not living on the edge like I used to, you know, I would run a business like it's gonna be $1 billion business or it's gonna go bankrupt. And a couple of them went bankrupt. Like that's just the way I used to run it. It's like, no fear, running gun. But now it's like, well, yeah, now once you start getting, and then that's the other side of it is once you start getting a little bit more comfortable, how complacent do you get? How risk averse are you? Things like that. But, so if you want me, I'll continue on if you want.
Yeah. So moving down to Florida.
Yeah. So, my dad ended up passing away not too long after that. And, I told DJ, who was in Fort Lauderdale, I'm like, I think it was around January at that time. I had just had enough. I had made the decision mentally that I'm done with DC, and I'm going to move to Florida and start a mortgage business. So I told him, I'm like, you have 2 months to stack some cash because I'm coming and we're going to start a mortgage broker business. So I started the licensing and stuff, from DC, packed my car, whatever I could fit in my car. Whatever I couldn't, I gave away. A couple of my friends came down and they took all my winter clothes. I literally just gave everything away that wouldn't fit and drove to Fort Lauderdale. And a month later, we had a Premier Mortgage branch in Pompano Beach, Florida, selling mortgages.
25, 26 years old?
Yeah, 26. Yep. It was 2006. Market was still really good, but it was peaking.
Good time. Yeah.
I didn't know it at the time. I mean, I've never lived through a mortgage crash. I didn't even know what that meant. I didn't even know that was a thing that could happen. You know what I mean? Like you hear about it, you're like, oh yeah, okay,
sure.
It's never going to crash, right? Well, how could that happen? So we had really good months. I mean, we honestly, for a brand new business, we built good relationships. We had a couple good realtor partners. We were doing a lot of refinances at the time, and we were having big. I mean, I think our third month in business, we made $70,000 that month. I mean, literally, that was like almost double the salary that I had at my old job in DC when I started.
Well, you're splitting 70 grand with DJ, and they're just like, hey, try not to screw it up.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean that in the sense of like anyone who's 26 years old, whether you're in the NFL or it's like, hey kid, here's $1 million. Don't be an idiot.
Yeah.
Same concept.
Yeah, we made poor decisions with our money. I mean,
it's hard when it grows quickly.
But
yeah.
Listen, I mean, you're 20, 26, 27 years old living in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I mean, it was fun. I mean, it was the market was crazy. South Florida was nuts. I mean, it was a difficult market to be in business. It's just a shady market. It's a tough market. It's, no matter how you slice it, South Florida is a difficult market. Yeah. And, we did really well down there for a little while. And then, 07, 08, the market crashes. And so it's like, oh shit, what do we do now? Because literally in Florida, then it's like they just turned the faucet off. You just couldn't do any business in Florida, in South Florida, for almost, I want to say almost 2 years, if I remember correctly. Like
that's
at
wild.
least a year. You just couldn't do anything. No bank would finance anything because the bottom of the market just dropped out. We bought a condo in Boca Raton, Florida in December 2006. And it was around 300, and I think it was 115, 125. We couldn't short sell it for. We couldn't even get somebody to buy it for that. So that's amazing. 60% of the market, 60% of the equity. I mean, December 2006. Once again, live and learn was probably the peak of the market. Mm-hmm. So worst time to buy. And then, you couldn't sell it. I mean, it was a crazy time to be alive. And it was definitely a crazy time to be 26, 27 in your first business
in the mortgage
industry that just crashed. So, I mean, you want to talk about learning experiences, you want to talk about security, there was zero.
I can't think of a better example. With like, what industry in the past 100 years experienced a more dramatic, like maybe a Wall Street broker in like
maybe
Great
like the
Depression,
.com crash,
yeah, or the
I mean,
.com,
you've
but
got
like,
some of those things, but
like to be 26 though, you know what I mean? It makes me think it's like the Wolf of Wall Street thing on Black Monday, where it's like the firm that was 110 years old closed its doors, you know?
yeah,
Like,
we used to come
it's that
in.
sort
We
of
would
thing.
come into the office every day, and they had a website, mortgageimplode.com back then, and they would just list every bank that went out of business that day. So we were like, who went out today? Who went out of business today? Literally, it was just hundreds of lenders and brokers and mortgage banks. And I'll never forget the last day we had our account executive was with American Brokers Conduit, which was American Home Mortgage, owned that company. And Joe Raskowskis, who I'm still friends with today, super cool dude. He called and was like, we had like 7 loans in process, and he said, "Dude, none of your loans are closing." He had this real deep voice. He was such a funny dude. We used to hang out all the time. And I'm like, what do you mean they're not closing? Like not closing on time? He said, "No, we just went bankrupt." I said,
Like,
"Who
hey,
went
good morning.
bankrupt? You went?" He said, "No, American Home Mortgage." I said, "American Home Mortgage went back?" He said, "Yes, I just lost my job. You're my last call out of the office. None of your shit's closing. You better
Bye."
find a new bank fast." And that was like literally that was kind of the end of it. We were struggling to make it. We were trying to find a couple of banks to place some of these loans. And I think the last mortgage we ever did, this guy, I forget his name. He had, I think it was 2 new construction condos in Miami under contract that he needed to close on. And this was right as the market had already turned.
Mm-hmm.
And he had $150,000 non-refundable deposits down on both of them. And if he didn't close, they just took the money. Well, the market had already shifted. So I think that price was 800,000 for both of them. I mean, he was a speculator. This is what caused a lot of it. And they only praised at 650. So in order to purchase them, he had to come up with like another couple 100,000 on each. And he owned a bunch of Metro PCS stores back in the day. And
Mm-hmm.
he made a business decision to go through with, like, he ended up buying them, putting all that extra money on. Now, if he kept them till today, he's probably doing just fine. But at the time, we were like, it's either the dumbest decision ever or the smartest decision ever, because like I don't know what I would have done.
Yeah.
But he was totally stuck, and he ended up closing on them. I think that's the last mortgage, one of the last mortgages that we closed, if not the last one. And it was just like, but that's just the way the market was then. It was crazy.
So when you're back, I mean, so that it goes out of business. I mean, it's obviously, so it's
Yep.
timeline wise, moving there 25, 26, you're now 28 to 30 range.
28, 2008. I would have been 28. Market died, and so we went out. Obviously, the mortgage business went out of business because you just couldn't do any mortgages in Florida. So I ended up moving to a national lender. I had having to get. I think I was licensed in 17 states at one point in time. So really, you could do mortgages, and there was still business going on. I mean, the Pittsburgh market barely even dropped back
Yeah,
then.
I don't even really.
Like nobody even, like, you talk about the mortgage crash. I'm like, yeah, we went down 2% here. I'm like, well, not a lot of, like, Florida, Nevada, Michigan for some reason, Arizona, California, they were all like, you couldn't do anything in any of those states back then. So I started working for that bank, did well. Once again, it was like they changed the mortgage rules back then. The Dodd-Frank regulations came into play, and nobody knew how to pay anybody at the time because they hadn't quite figured out how to do the compensation. So I remember I was there at like they started counting our hours, in the mortgage industry because they had to treat us like employees. So they had to pay you a salary plus bonus, which meant obviously you weren't going to make as much money as you were making whenever you were just earning straight commission in the mortgage industry.
Right.
And I remember they kicked me out at like 1:00 on a Friday because she said, "You've been here longer than 40 hours this week. You have to leave the office because we're not going to pay overtime." And I'm just like, this is a sinking ship too. I did well there. I mean, honestly, two of the guys that I worked with in Florida are in the top 10 in the mortgage industry in the nation today.
Yeah.
So I had a good group. We did a lot of mortgages. We were working with a lot of hedge funds at the time that were buying big rolls of paper, mortgages, and we were refinancing, doing short refinances basically with the Debt Forgiveness Act. We were trying to get people who were supremely underwater refinancing the lower loan amounts, get the debt forgiven. That was really interesting. Again, that was just like that was about a year of that lasted.
Yeah.
And then as all the changes and stuff came through, the market started coming back a little bit on the real estate side in Florida. And I started seeing, real estate transactions and stuff come through again. And I'm now once again, like almost like treated like a salary employee.
Yeah. You found yourself back where you didn't want to necessarily be.
And, I see some of the real estate checks and quite honestly, the real estate agents were not that impressive. I was just like, they're making all this money. I'm the one killing myself to get the last pay stub from the guy that won't call me back, and his deal's not going to close on time unless he does. And then I was like, I'm on the wrong end of this transaction, and so I started looking around, and I think I had my real estate license. I think I took both of them when I first went down there. I forget if I just.
Well, so that was going to be a question because I actually don't know. So I know the majority of the backstory, but like, what was the transition point? So you're working for the national lender, you get licensed. Like, did you ever have overlap? Did you just go? Because that's
I took a little bit of overlap. I still did a little bit on the mortgage. I mean, I was still working on the mortgage side. You couldn't process your own transactions. So
okay.
You could still sell real estate. There were a lot of people in our office that had a real estate license that were maybe doing their own investing or whatever the case may be. So I transitioned out of that where I knew I had some mortgages. I gave myself like 6 months to start getting some real estate transactions. And then as soon as I had a little bit coming in, I kind of jumped full time. Like, I mean, you could still keep your mortgage license hanging there. I just didn't want to do it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up ultimately moving over to the real estate side. And that was, that would have been 2000, probably 10-ish.
Okay.
And the issue that we had then is very similar to the one that we have right now, in that when the market started coming back up in South Florida, every hedge fund, your Blackstones, all these the big companies were buying every house sight unseen the day it hit the market, and it was causing the market to just start skyrocketing again. So we took a supreme crash, and then things were flying all the way back up. So once again, listings were gold if you could get them. Back then, you had very limited internet advertising, Facebook ads. So I got really good at being able to generate leads online back then. And I basically taught like Google pay-per-click, and was able to generate enough business off of that. And Craigslist was big back then. You could just post ads. There were literally companies that would just post ads on Craigslist all day long, every property that hit the MLS and get.
Well, I have a question. So like, because you're very humble, it's an excellent quality, but like you're, and that's why I just wanted to stop it for a second. Cause like the jump from the things that you're doing in the past 10 minutes, you said things that ruin people's lives.
Yeah.
And people don't recover from for the rest of their life, because they'll take that failure in the mortgage industry, move back to Altoona, and go back to counting lunch tickets and hating themselves.
Yeah, and be miserable.
And so seriously, where it's like, and I'm just saying, like, kudos to you for not, you know, in the sense that you're like, oh man, you know, it's trial by fire to the maximum degree. You still stayed with it, you know, and it goes back to what your dad's saying, where it's like, you've really never failed. You learned, you know what I mean? You learned how to do it. And guess what? You're the best person I know at running comps for now. I wonder why, because you've processed hundreds of, maybe thousands of deals, you know, yourself in the mortgage side and on the real estate side now. And you can just look at the homes and just be like, yeah, this, calculate it, figure it out, list it accurately, and then grow into what you are now. So my question is, you know, with the licensing process there, you know, like, what would you say, I guess, to someone who's looking to shift in, like, the uncertainty of it? Again, the uncertainty in quotes, like, you know, not necessarily the step-by-step how to do it, but just what were your thoughts in that period? And then, like, when you started, you know, you found your niche with the internet ads, again, not running into like what should someone specifically do, but like your thoughts on just like, you find your thing, you go with it, you know, that.
Yeah. Well, part of it was I didn't have any other choice, right? I didn't leave myself an out. I think a lot of people that come into the real estate industry, you have an out. If you have something to fall back on, you're never going to fully commit to it. I didn't really have any other choice. And in that point in time, I'll never forget, I actually I went and met with a recruiter back in 2009. I was like, man, maybe I should see what's out there. Maybe I could go back into it. Maybe I will go back into accounting. Like, I've been beaten up a little bit at that point in time. Yeah, I was frustrated. There were tough times. I mean, there were a lot of hard days back then, going through Publix, not knowing if your groceries are gonna if there's enough money in the bank account to accept it or not. Mm-hmm. You know, those days are tough. Don't make you look at every opportunity. But I went and met with a recruiter about getting back into accounting, and at that point I was like 4 years out, and they were like, you're going back to the start, entry level positions. And I started thinking, I'm like, I'm never going to do that. I'm just not going to go back and do that. But a lot of it is just, I had no other choice, which I think is the best thing.
I agree.
Yeah. The prey drive was activated, as Coach Burt says.
Prey drive was activated.
What did you have anyone that you were like when you switched over then into full-time real estate? Like, did you have anyone that maybe in the office or someone that you had kind of as a mentor that got you on your feet, or it was literally just you trial by fire? Like, we'll figure out what works.
No, and I wish I did. Honestly, I almost did. I ended up partnering up with my buddy Mike Benton about a year in, but I was actually, like, I was trying to find the right place. I went to a couple of smaller real estate companies. I knew I just didn't want to be like, I don't know, I didn't want to be at this big real estate company, but I ended up at a Coldwell Banker. I went to a couple of small places, didn't find the right opportunity. I knew this one guy who is still crushing it down in Fort Lauderdale. Jonathan Keith was at this one Coldwell Banker branch. So I'm like, if he's killing it, maybe I could do the same thing there. I went there, but I never really, the management there they didn't really know what they were doing either. It was just the same thing. They're just trying to keep you out of contract problems. And so it took a lot longer, I think. Like, I struggled for a longer period of time because I had to figure out, I started following every coach online, get every free training that I could get into. I started following Kinder Reese and those guys at the time. I would take all their free stuff, where they had a monthly, they had a cheap monthly membership that you could get.
Yeah. So wait, what year?
Sign up.
What year is
I
this?
would
How
take
old are you now?
I could get out of there for a month and then I would cancel it. Because I didn't want to continue to pay the monthly.
Trial period.
Yeah.
Just at the time that this podcast is recording, the reason that this is so phenomenal is you're 31, 2 now, doing the mortgage stuff, getting all the free stuff online from Kinder Reese. DJ's currently sitting with Jay Kinder at a training retreat in Florida 10 years
All
plus
come full
later.
circle.
Yeah, where it's like you were scraping by trying to figure it out. But it's in my point in saying that is, and we're still learning. You know what I mean? As a group. So the mentorship aspect of it, it's amazing where it's like, no, I didn't have one. DJ's currently sitting on the couch next to Jay right now.
Right. Yeah, so, it's funny. It's funny
wild.
how it all comes full circle. Yeah. Yeah, I've been following those guys for a long time. So, but yeah, I mean, it was, I was just trying to stay like, I don't want to say like this arrogant. I just felt like I was smarter than a lot of people that were in real estate. Like, so my thought always wasn't, I'm just going to do the same thing that everybody else is doing. What's a way that I could generate business that nobody's going to ever take the time to learn, or they're not going to have the patience, or so that's where like I felt back then, if I could teach myself how to generate leads on Google, pay-per-click, I'll never have to worry about a lead ever again. Like, and I don't have to rely on somebody else to generate business for me or pay, like, so I just started looking at ways where, hey, how could I have a competitive advantage where it's going to suck. I'm going to sit down and just and back then, I didn't have a kid. I wasn't married. I wasn't like, I could sit there from 7 a.m. till 3 a.m. working it out and figuring everything out. And like, so I put in 80, 100-hour weeks sometimes back then. I just grinded it out. Like I didn't have anything else to do. I'll never forget. I think the first guy I closed on the real estate side responded to a Craigslist ad at like 10:30 p.m. And I was just sitting, I was like, well, fuck it, I'll just call him. I called him at 10:30. He answered. We talked, took him out to show properties the next couple of days, and had a deal on your contract. Like, I would never do that today. I'm asleep.
Yeah.
Like, but back then, I needed the money. Like, I had to have it. I had that prey drive. I'd do anything for a deal. I used to sit at open houses all week. There were so many vacant properties in Florida. I bought a jetpack. One of those Verizon jetpacks, so I had internet. I had a fold-out table, and I would just sit at any open house, anybody in my office. If it was vacant, I'd be like, "Hey, can I do an open house there, like Monday through Friday?" You're like, "You really want to go sit there Monday through Friday?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'll be there from whatever X to X." I flipped the table out. So the jetpack, I might as well work from a house where somebody might walk in and give me business than sitting in an office where nobody's ever going to walk in. I mean, there's
no.
So it was like back then I would have done anything to get business. And
Did you get some in those open houses?
Yeah, hell yeah. You got signs out. It's South Florida.
People walking their dog, man.
We had, this is back when people were looking at it like it was a discount again.
Yeah.
So we had, you got Canadian investors flying in. You've got, back then, you never knew when some investor would be driving down the street and would pop out and want to pay cash for a house.
Yeah.
Like, it's a market like that. It's just, there's people everywhere. So in the peak seasons, yeah, you might as well have a sign out and have the ability to have somebody just randomly drive by the house and want to come in.
Yeah. Yeah. And to that, it's differentiation. Obviously that's an important part of just the business that we all work on, but it's something where you're the 30-second, you did it with your face, where the guy was like, why would you want to sit at the house why don't you just sit at the office and wait for things to happen here?
Yeah.
It's just like, no, I'm gonna go, like that experience with me, even starting too, where it's like starting with office hours. Even when I got licensed, man, you have to go to, like, you can wait for your license to be mailed to you from Harrisburg. That might take somewhere between 2 to 6 weeks, or you could go get it. And it was like, well, I'm not doing anything tomorrow. I'm going to go get it and I'll be back. Exactly. And then I can be a real estate agent on Thursday instead of in 6 weeks. It's just like that sort of stuff. I think that's the differentiator really, where you're like, yeah, I'm going to find people, at the open house.
I mean, to that point, like if you like, sometimes if you just have to want something bad enough and then you just go get it, like it'll work.
Yep.
It almost always works. The problem that we have, and I probably even have this problem today, is we just sit back and wait, and we, it'll come, I'll wait on the phone call. Oh, well, if they really want to see the house, they'll call. It's like the people who just go get it, win. And they're successful. They're not smarter than anybody else. They're not better salespeople. They're not, better looking. They're not like the people who are successful, especially in a sales industry, real estate industry. They just go freaking get it.
Yeah.
They just find a way, like do more. They do more activities. They pick up the phone more. They call them. It's just, we overcomplicate a lot of this business. If you really want it, you just freaking go get it.
Yeah. And I think too, on the days when you wake up and you exercise and you don't think about it, you're just like, the alarm goes off. I got my things. I exercise. I come home. I make the 5 immediate phone calls I need to, and 10 more prospecting calls. And then it's 11 a.m. And then I go to appointments. And by the time it's like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you're like, holy shit, I've done more today than I've done in the past 3 days. And it's when I think you kind of, not impulsively, but you act in a manner of like the pursuit of the goal. So just to bring it back real quick, the feeling of like, so you're getting started. At what point did you feel that you got some traction, and then what motivated you to move back north, back to the Pennsylvania region?
So I ended up at a Remax down there, and at the time we could generate a lot of leads, and I partnered up with a guy who actually just came and joined us over at Exp recently, but we started a team down there, and teams weren't very popular then, but we could generate online leads. So we had a couple agents in our office who were struggling for leads. So we basically set up the same structure. We could generate the leads for them. They would run with the buyers. And then ultimately it made it difficult then. We were Mike and I were on 2 different paths then. I wanted to continue to stay in this industry. He wanted to do more from the house flipping side. Inventory was low. It was harder for some of the agents. So we ended up we did a little bit of investing together, and that ultimately kind of brought me to the final straw down there in Florida. I mean, I moved down there in 2006, 2007 ish. And, I've been through a market crash, went to a national lender, started on the real estate side. Like I have literally started over 4 times, I think, at this point in time. He wanted to start a house flipping business, and I just didn't want to start over again. I'm like, I need to just commit. I know I can do well at this. I'm just going to commit to it. And he ended up finding a house. He had an investor who paid for it. It was in Pompano. It was like east of the Intercoastal, great location. And they were going to flip it. And I'm like, he said, you should buy this when we're done with it. You could come in, you can help me remodel it. And so that was kind of the dream then. I was like, oh, well, we'll remodel this house when it's done. I'll buy it from the investor. The investor funded it, so everything was in his name. Just kind of like a handshake partnership.
Okay.
And the thing turned into a nightmare. Got popped for permits. It was delayed longer than ever. My girlfriend and I at the time had to be out of our lease. We were basically like homeless for 6 months. Not really homeless, but like finding almost back then it wasn't really Airbnb, but it was like month to month rentals and stuff in storage and waiting on this thing to get done. And then at the end, the guy screwed me over. And he said, sorry, man, this is taking too long. And the market has improved so much. Like I can make so much more money not selling it to you. And he just kind of fucked me. And
Yeah.
so I was hot.
Out of the gate swinging.
Yeah, I mean, literally, because like we had been kind of bouncing around for 6 months.
Yeah, that's a while.
And I talked to him. I never forget. Like I mean, I wanted to. Every bad thought went through my head at that point in time.
Yeah.
And I just never forget. Like I talked to my brother-in-law one day, and obviously they have a successful business, and he's like, "Man, why don't you just move to Pittsburgh and sell real estate? You have a normal market. You don't have to worry about all these ups and downs. Like I've seen what you went through." And at the time, it sounded very logical to me. Like this place is just, I'm burned out on South Florida.
Yeah.
Like, I looked at my girlfriend and I'm like, how do you feel about moving to Pittsburgh? I'm done with this place. Like I just can't, I can't live here any longer. And somehow she agreed. And a month later we moved to Pittsburgh, 2013.
What year was it?
2013, July 3rd. I took the course, I passed the test. I believe it was August 1st, 2013.
Okay. And then new market and applying some of what you cut your teeth on in South Florida. What was it like? I remember you mentioning some BPOs and stuff when you got over here, but talk through some of that then.
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I didn't have much income coming through. We had back then. It was still, there was still a lot of foreclosures, so there were a lot of companies that wanted to do BPO. So I was chasing BPOs, doing them $50, $75 a clip.
Yeah. For who?
Learn the market really fast that way.
What's a BPO for whoever did?
Broker price opinion. So when before a bank puts a property on the market, they've already foreclosed on it.
Mm.
Excuse me. They get a broker price opinion, which is basically a short form appraisal. I mean, it might as well be an appraisal at the time. You're running out, you're doing comps, you're taking photos of the property, driving all over the area, and it's not worth it.
Do you think that doing that $50 at a time helped you learn the market faster?
For sure. Yeah. Honestly, one of those companies never paid me on it. They owed me like $3,800. Never paid me, and they knew I couldn't do anything about it.
Yeah.
But it was a good experience because I drove every neighborhood in Pittsburgh, in neighboring counties. I mean, I was on roads that I still don't know today where the hell they're at. Like, but yeah, you had to comp every property. So literally, I was hundreds of short form comps.
You were doing the beginning stages of a listing presentation.
Yep. And then at the time, I got I implemented the same thing that I was doing in South Florida, and it was just cheaper here. So I could do. We got a Real Geeks website. Our company, I told Basin, I'll run a whole pay-per-click campaign for the company. You can put whatever agents you want on it, and we can just increase the spend as you want. And so I just started generating pay-per-click campaign ads, and then Facebook started getting big then. And I was generating a lot of Facebook ads, and they were way better than they are today, saturated today. But I was able to just get leads online at a small, more inexpensive price than what most people are. So I basically built this business on that, and expired listings.
So that was going to be my next question. It's like you had your foundation. You had your foundation of, I know how to do this. I know how to do this. You're going out again, whatever amount of time, doesn't matter, calling the guy back at 10:30 p.m. You hit a point where you're kind of, you get home at 10 p.m. on a Friday and you're ignoring your friends' text messages because you were at an appointment in Canada, and you had to drive home, and like that feeling of like, God damn it. So what then is the motivation? DJ Fairley enters the story somewhere around here.
Yeah.
Partnering with the intention of, I can do a lot by myself, but I can do more with others. is the question.
Right.
You know, when did you hit that point?
Yeah, I mean, I at that point in time, I mean, I had been doing it a couple of years. I hired a coach then. I think Hoss Pratt was my first coach. I put it on a credit card. I didn't really have the money for it. I think he let me go a couple of months. I didn't, you know, I couldn't pay a couple of months. He let me slide, but he was the coach I needed at the time for what I wanted to get accomplished. And back then I wanted listings. I was tired of just chasing all the time. I wanted to get listings. He was the FISBO guy and the expired boss. So his system and his coaching calls were what I needed. It was accountability. How many calls did you make? Why not? Why didn't you make the calls? You know, like, and so I started that manner, and then, you know, and I started building a business. I mean, it was not like I was ever like lighting the world on fire, but I was always able to generate enough business for myself where I never had to really worry about anything. And then at the time, things started getting we started getting a little bit better. I was doing, you know, I don't even know how many transactions. I think towards I think before DJ came, I think I did 40 transactions that year. And at the time, DJ was in the tech industry for years and years and years. He bailed after the market crashed. He got out of this industry altogether. He went and sold tech. He worked for CDW, and he was crushing it. But, you know, I think at the time his girl just left.
We're interviewing him on Friday. Don't worry.
Yeah, so you can get that whole story.
That'll be a good one.
But yeah, he was like, "Oh, it's so awesome! I made so much money," and I'm like, "But you look like you're gonna die." He literally was like 100 pounds overweight. You know, he was drinking 5 nights a week because he was doing all these dinners with all these. You know, he was doing that corporate salesperson lifestyle, and he was just like, I'm about to quit. And so he said, I think I'm gonna take a mini retirement and travel around the world. I was like, well, after you're done with that, why don't you should move back to Pittsburgh, because he's from here originally anyway. He didn't have anything holding him to Florida. I said, you should come up here and start slinging real estate with me. We'll start a real estate team. And what was it, 9 months later? Yeah.
Yes.
Tables have turned.
Down with an afro. He had cut a bunch of weight. I mean, he was literally like
Zen master DJ.
Nomad lifestyle. Yeah.
Yeah. In the dojo, the call center dojo. Well, it's interesting to me because this is now the second time you've said this, where it's like, hey, do you want to? Yeah, I'll move to Florida and do the thing. Yeah, that you just flip flopped. You know what I mean?
Right.
Where it's wild. Where like he was there doing the thing. He's like, well, if you move to Florida, we can start a mortgage company. Like, hey, well, when you move to Pittsburgh, start a real estate company. It's like, okay,
full circle again.
But it's the commitment. It's the commitment. That's the continuing theme. Like again, I'm trying to listen for it, and like I, you know, obviously know you pretty well, but hearing the story again, where it's like you guys, you say it, you commit to it, and you act on it, and you follow through. And I think that's a very key indicator of a successful person. You know, and success is defined by each individual. You know, in you know, you said work from 7 a.m. to 3 a.m. Well, no shit, you don't do that now because you have a wife and a son. You know, and success is different now. You know, for you, and it's different for everybody. So, you know, DJ joins. We'll interview him on Friday. It'll be interesting to get his side of the story.
Yeah,
you know, but with you, sorry,
I said you'll have fun with that one.
It's always fun. The question is, you know, you're building the team with DJ, running your head into the wall, and you know, Jen Clardy, I believe, was the first person who joined with you guys.
Yep.
What's like the order of operations? You know, Jen wants to join. It's the three of you. You know, I think I was like the 6th person, maybe 7. You know, now into like where we're at now, it's
I mean, I honestly, I don't even know that we were going to start a team, so to speak. It was like, we'll partner up. And then Jen came to us she wanted to get a real estate license. I think her company, she had a good job, she was making six figures. And I believe her company relocated to Ohio, and she either needed to move or not. She wanted to get into real estate. Jen's husband was our old college roommate. So honestly, their house was the first house. They were the first buy and sell I had in Pittsburgh, was Kevin and Jen's house in Green Tree. And so Jen was like, I want to get my license. I don't know what to do. And I said, well, you could come be on our team. I think I even started her out. She was helping process transactions. So I was paying her a little bit on each transaction to try to get something coming in while she was learning. And then we started working through her with the buy side. And then we really started thinking more about a team at that point in time. So then we started looking for starting to add additional people. And then people started coming to us like, hey, I see you're growing a team. Are you looking for any new agents? So there weren't a lot of teams. That was 2017, 18. It's not team crazy like it is today. Everybody's got a team today, but back then there weren't as many of those happening. So originally we stayed small. We wanted to stay small. We weren't trying to grow a 50-person team. We were just trying to handle all the business that we had. And then, shortly after DJ coming up here, he had a kid. So then it was, oh no, well, he couldn't be running around all day, Saturday, Sunday, so then the team, the outlook of the team and the way that we were looking at it is, well, how do we make this team a real business where we can work the hours that you want to work and run it like a business, not just like a real estate person with a job.
Right. It's no more running and gunning because there's another life involved here now.
Right.
Yeah. It's not just us. Like, we have more to worry about. And it's like, you said at the beginning where it's like running and gunning, where it's either going to make $1 billion or go bankrupt. And we went bankrupt a couple of times.
Yep.
But that's not an option anymore.
No, exactly. And and really it's just like, what do we started looking at, like, I mean, at this point, I've been in this industry 12 years. So it's not like 100% commission for a very long time. It's, eventually it catches up to you where you're like, is this really, do I want to be, I went to a house on Mount Washington, and, there was an agent up there who had been doing it for 30 years and probably had emphysema and couldn't make it up the stairwell to open the door up. She didn't have a lockbox on the property. And she just sat there on the stoop wheezing.
Oh, man.
And I was just like,
oh, no.
This is not going to be me.
Yeah.
I am not going to be this real estate agent that's, 70, about to die on the front stoop of a house in Mount Washington, because I'm so because literally you've been working this lifestyle for so long. It's like, I got to run this like a business. I have got to get smarter.
I'm going to step away, take a quick admin break. Please continue onward, folks.
Yep, no worries. So with that, the that leads into the future, like where we're at now, right? And it's a similar feeling, man. Where like what you just described is an unfortunate reality. Not that there's a pitch behind it, but it's like, what's your retirement plan? What's your business plan? Do you have one? Are you, back to what we already said, I think about this probably too much. It's the security. You don't have it unless you create it for yourself, the same way that you don't have hours in the real estate industry unless you create them for yourself. The bonus of making your own schedule is, well, the flip side of that coin is, if you fail, no one cares. Right. No one's going to call you. There's the difficulties in that, but like with that example of, I guess it sounds like it was a couple of things like in order, where like DJ's Maverick now, and his son is 3, 4 years old. Timmy's back.
All right.
And so, you're seeing that older agent, you're trying to envision yourself like, what is the end game here for me?
Yeah. Well,
is what it sounds like.
I think there's a couple things at play, right? Yes, there's that. There's, hey, I've been grinding this thing out for years and years and years. It felt like I felt like I had lived a lifetime in business through all of the stuff that I had done. Um, and I started following different people, right? Like, so before I was, you go in these stages of your career, and in real estate, it's never more relevant. Like, you start out, you just need money, and you do whatever you can, and then you start out, and then you actually get the business, and then you're running crazy, pulling your hair out, and then you want to try to get listings to try to create some kind of get a little bit of time back, and then you want to grow it. Like, I just started following people who were actually running a real estate business that weren't just a real estate agent who claimed they had a business, but all they had was a high paid job. If if they didn't go show that house on Saturday, they didn't get paid next month.
Absolutely.
That's not a business.
It's not.
Right. And that's what everybody in this industry, that's the trap, that it's an ego game. You're not running it. Nobody runs it like a business. Well, a lot of people do now. I mean, that's the people that we started following. That's how we ended up where we ended up, is because I started looking up to the people who were running a business.
Yeah.
Not the people who were selling 100 homes a year, but were,
right.
had health problems, and their life was a train wreck. Like, that's not what I wanted in my life. I wanted to be a business owner.
I can test you on that. Where, like, I think a lot of the people that we talk to run the real estate career as a business. I don't think a lot of real estate agents are doing that. And I say that as, like, I'm 2.5 years in. I mean, at first year one was COVID. Year 1.5 was I'm going all day, every day, to the point that I had like a snapping point, and I just like flew out to Seattle and sat on my sister's couch for like 2 weeks. Like, I just needed to like back away.
Avoiding burnout. Yeah, that's
big. And so that, again, Tim, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. As far as like the avoiding burnout, that maybe is like one of the last questions, where it's like building it sustainably into the future. Where do you see yourself going? What do you want it to be the next 10 years? Matt Durbin, 2032, what's he doing?
Yeah, I mean, 10 years is such a long time. This is one of those things, like, we do planning sessions. I always have a really hard time with seeing past a couple of years. I forget the quote, but it's like, you always underestimate what you can do in 5 years or 10 years, and overestimate what you can do in 1 year or something like that. But it's, I think it's just so easy to get caught up in the real estate, like, ego mind game, right?
Yeah.
It's just so easy to get caught up in that and everybody comparing themselves, and I'm the best, and I'm the best, sold the most here, and it's like, nobody gives a shit at the end of the day, right? Yeah. So now I have I've got a 2-year-old, I've got a family, I've got a lot of people that work with me now. We have a big organization. So, like, I start looking at, well, how do I want this organization? Because I have no thoughts in my mind that, like, hey, I should be running a real estate team and keeping all these people on my team, and having no future for growth for them, and not creating any leaders, or, like, I'm gonna just be the king sitting at the top of the hill pulling money off everybody until I can milk them for all they're worth, and then eventually they leave. Like, that just sounds like a terrible business model for me too. That's one of the reasons we came here where we're at now, or our brokerage is just, if we now can just generate huge organizations with people, and there's limitless opportunities for everybody that's in my organization. So now, I can continue to grow income wise. I can continue to grow free time freedom, my business. but I can do it collaboratively with everybody that's in my organization, and they have the same opportunity that I do. And now we look at it like, well, how do we grow? Well, we could eventually in 10 years, why couldn't we have 20 of you that are, if you really wanted to run your own real estate team, running your, like, we could certainly do that now. Like there's just so much more endless possibility. But at the end of the day, like you look at the real estate industry, everybody just wants to be, I'm going to be number one in my market. Like nobody gives a shit at the end of the day. Are you number one, with, how many games you saw your kids? Are you number one with your time? Are you number one with vacation? Like, are you living a good, healthy life? Or you're like, there's so many more variables and things that we should be measuring life and success by that we're not. And the real estate industry is the absolute worst at this.
It is.
Like, are you really building a business and an organization around what you want your life to look like? Or are you building it to just, so you can put your Facebook posts up and everybody.
Yeah, Instagram. Even, I mean, it's like the TV show. I mean, to be honest with you, I haven't really ever watched more than 1 or 2 episodes, but like Selling Sunset, that sort of thing, where it's like the glamorization of an industry is something that people, I think, try to model on a micro level, because what they see is that reality TV scripted garbage. And it's, or Chip and Joanna Gaines, where it's like, we buy the shittiest house in the nicest neighborhood and spend an exorbitant amount of money from our HGTV budget to make it unrealistic for the buyers in the area to purchase. It's just like, it's not a reality.
I just think that's a stage that
try to model that,
right? I wanted to be that person for a while on my way up, right? Like I want to be the guy on the billboard. Now I don't want to be on anything. I just like, I think that's probably a natural stage, but like, yeah, I mean, everybody thinks they're on, they're in Malibu selling a $20 million house, and you're in Pittsburgh selling a 250. Like, don't let your ego get too out of hand, right? Like,
Well, and the thing is, though, if you want to hit that level, the thing with EXP in the model is like, I mean, we had a call with John DeSmit. He called me, from Charlotte, North Carolina, because he saw our interviews and conversations about FSBO, for sale by owners. He reached out for me from North Carolina. I'm going to call him after this because he called me last night, and he's, I don't know how old he is, but he has gray hair and he's older than I am. And like, he's like, it's a servant leadership, and you have that very much within you, I think, as well. And I think that's what attracted me to wanting to be part of your group, where I'm like, this guy knows what he's doing, and he's a nice human being, and like you genuinely care about everyone so much, and I appreciate that very much. And I appreciate you taking the time to talk through it with us, man. And seriously, I say it on camera. I should say it more. I very much appreciate all that you've done for me over the past couple of years. It's helped me so much, and
we'll hug it out when you come in next time.
Well, I appreciate you very much.
We'll have to get you back on. I feel like we could go at this for hours, but maybe we can have a part 2 scheduled here fairly soon. So after talking to Mr. Fairley and getting his
we'll have both of you on. You can fight. We'll film it.
Yeah, that'll be good.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on, and I appreciate you taking the time. And we will talk to you again.
Got it.
Yeah.